Your speaker's not on, that's fine. Continue. Meeting audio may not be fully recorded. I hope to God it will.
It's fine.
And then share my screen. Yeah. Share.
Well, what's the issue?
It doesn't matter, whatever.
Anything will just re-record it.
Yeah. All right, now this is massively in the way. Also very cool. Like so. Nice. Wow, we finally made it. That took a while. All right, so we're gonna actually try and get started on this now after a little delay. What? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna have a look at Codegrade. I assume most of you have stumbled into it on your quest to hand in your tasks. I assume most of you have also had issues with it because Codegrade is a bitch. Flat out, no way around it. I mean, I guess it's nice because it's very objective, which means as soon as it gets confirmed, yeah, like once it gets confirmed in Codegrade, you're through. Like failing is near impossible. So it's a very good way for you to make sure that you're good. Welcome.
Well, sorry. No worries. Drop in.
Yeah, just drop in. Right. So a little overview of Codegrade. Once you've handed in, you can see like an overview of your hand in. This is a test student who has failed everything, I'm pretty sure. So the way it works is that there are a set of tests. They're listed here. So for example, 1.1 is the test where it tries to buy a budget ticket and then finish the script. So it's essentially, it uses your script and tries to see if it works as intended. If you click on it, you'll get a little overview. It'll tell you the expected output. And then over here on the right, it'll tell you what your actual output was. Your output will be a lot longer because it takes all of your output, but it only checks for like the final part. So just because there's a bunch of lines in the actual output, it doesn't mean it's wrong. The important tab here is the difference one. In here, Codegrade will show you what is either missing or is superfluous. So if it's marked red, it's there without needing to be there. And if it's blue, it's missing. If it's gray, it doesn't matter. So you can just ignore it. It doesn't care about it. So in this case, it'll be saying that we're missing the line that says receipt ticket 500 kroner, for example. That's sort of the general overview. You can see this for all of the tests. What you want to do is you want to make sure that your final output is exactly what it says in the expected output box. And when I say exactly, I mean exactly. It will, like there are tiny little dots. It might be a little hard to see, but actually not. There are tiny little dots showing the amount of spaces and everything.
Zoom in once.
Oh, fuck me. Yeah. So there are tiny little dots showing spaces and stuff as well. So it's literally down to the last space, and it's like that for every single task you're doing this course.
So all tabs, all white spaces, everything.
Yeah. Down to T. Right. So that's kind of the main thing. That's genuinely generally how you'll be using Codegrade. You upload, you get told you're wrong, and then you check why you're wrong. And then you repeat until you're right. There really isn't much more to it. Besides, and I guess this is the part we're talking about mostly today, styling. So styling is a thing in code where there are some guidelines for how your code should look. Things like how long a line is allowed to be, the naming of variables, what else is there? Things like not having empty white spaces, so on and so forth. There are a bunch.
Some rules you're supposed to follow.
Yeah, some rules that you should follow. And Codegrade cares about these rules. In this case, we're following Flake8. Flake8 is a Python standard, also called PEP8. That checks for these styling issues. And when you hand it in Codegrade, it'll give you a score between 0 and 1. Obviously, the goal is to get a 1. That's 100% pass.
You have to get a 1
Yeah, you have to get a 1.
to pass.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Yes.
In Codegrade, you can hand in, and then you can go down here, and it will tell you some errors. In this case, it'll say that Flake8 has detected trailing white space, and then it'll, oh, okay, nope. Oh no. Shit. It'll tell you trailing white space, and it'll tell you what file and what line in that file it detected this on. So in this case, trailing white space just means that on line 35 in lab11.py, there's some spaces after a line of code. That shouldn't be there. So you can just delete that, hand it in again, and that one will get removed. And so you got to go through that for all of them. Make sure that you get 100%. So there aren't any styling errors at all. Any questions? Or yeah. Right. Yeah. So the styling gets applied to comments as well as code. So there are styling rules for comments, and it gets really annoying because you just want to comment whatever you want to comment. For this, I don't think there's any way to ignore it, unfortunately. So you'll have to adapt your comments to fit whatever Flake8 tells you to.
Hashtag spacebar, and then you want to just one hashtag and then the spacebar. I think there might be, you need to have space before it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. 2 spaces before it, yeah. And then space. Yeah. That being said, it will also call your comments wrong if, like, say you write a line of code and then after it you add this comment. If that total line exceeds 79 characters, Flake8, that's one of the styling rules. That's a max length for a line. So then it'll call it wrong. So you'll either have to make it like a separate line for the comment or just make the comment shorter. Unfortunately, there isn't much to do about that. Later on, it's not so relevant here because Codegrade has its own built-in like Flake8 detection, so you can't really do it. But later on, you'll be able to set certain like lines that your styler ignores. So your linter, that's what it's called when it goes through and like checks for styling, will ignore the lines that you specify. So for example, if you write a bunch of comments, you can just tell it to not care about them because they're just comments. It's not that important. But for now, you'll have to kind of, yeah, make it fit. Right. So as we're actually getting this inside VS Code, because it's kind of annoying sometimes when you hand it in and it gives you a billion Flake8 errors, and then you go to correct them all and you hand it in and there's still a billion. So what you can do is you can set it up so that your VS Code shows you the errors just directly, so you can get them fixed before you even hand it in. Using Flake8. So if we open a command prompt, the majority of you should have pip installed. So if you just type pip in a command prompt, it should give you all of this. Yes, we already, yeah. In case you don't have pip installed, you'll have to, so in CMD, let me just quickly do like that. You type this line of code right here. I can send it in the Discord if anybody wants it. But before, just check, write pip, and if it works, you're good. So you write that, it'll download a file. Should download a file? Yeah, there you go. It'll download a file, and then from there, you have to run Python, and then get pip.py. So basically, you download a file that, it's a weird way that pip works. You're essentially downloading pip and then making pip install pip. So in this case, you then just write Python get pip. In this case, that was not, oh God. Oh, pipe, nope. Do I not have Python installed? There's no way. There's legit no way. No, no, I definitely have Python. Okay.
It's not Pi 3. There you go.
Nope.
Pi 3.
It goes to download.
Pi 3.
Oh, it is Pi. I wrote that.
It's just 2 spaces. Okay.
What 2 spaces?
Does Python look?
It should work. If you run into errors, I would recommend trying it while you're here or in the Zoom so we can try and help you because this.
If you have any issues, just call me directly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Discord.
Okay, right. I'll post the command real quick. Yeah. What do we write?
Huh? Leave me alone.
Right. Here, I'll write it in announcements, especially if someone could leave me alone. So it goes like that, and then it goes, it goes Python and then get pip.
The Python part is whatever your Python command is. So you just write pi, then you write pi get dash pip.
Yeah, you might have to try it out. It can be.
If it doesn't work, just call to us.
It can be Pi, Python, Python 3, and I think even Pi 3. Try those 4, and if neither work, none of them work, then you're in the same situation as me where Python is installed, but it just, yeah, pip and Python are fucking suffering. They suck. Not fun. And I don't know, dude. Oftentimes you just reinstall Python and then it works, and then you just keep going. Unfortunately. Yeah. Once you do have pip installed and it's up and running, you should then be able to, in here, write pip, and it gives you this lovely long thing. Is there an issue? No? Bro, that is an issue. You're not wrong. Actually, I also need power. I need power too. So, all right. All right, we found one in the see you, man. All right. Once you have pip installed, we can finally get to Flake8. Yeah. What's happening? I think Kia will help out. Right. So once pip is installed, what you are capable of doing is installing Python packages. Python packages allow you to do a lot of stuff. Right now, we just care about Flake8. What you do is you write pip and then you write Flake8. No, pip install Flake8. My bad. Install and then Flake8. This will download. For me, it says requirement already met, but for you, it should download something called Flake8 and just say that was successfully downloaded. Hopefully, at least given that everything works as intended. You keeping track of the, yeah. Nice. Let me try it out. Let me see again. I mean, Python is just pi. What was it? Pi get pip. Yeah, it might be a matter of location in this case. Downloading it from the Windows Store. I mean, personally, I wouldn't want Windows Store Python. True. Okay, so it seems like, are other people having the same issue with getting Python to actually run it? Okay. Well, getting the file to run, yes. Okay, sick. Then I'll assume that it's just my installation. Christ. Okay. Once you actually have Flake installed, we can actually get to using it in the way that we're interested in. So on my screen right now is an example of some very terrible code. It's not terrible in the sense that it's necessarily bad code, but the styling is complete garbage. You can see there are different indentation levels. There are variables just called A, means nothing. And in an if statement, we're trying to assign a variable, which makes no sense. So there are several errors here. If you, inside VS Code, hold Control and Shift and hit P, it'll open a little command in which you can write Python linter, Python select linter. And if you click there, click enter, or just click on it, it'll give you a list of options. In this case, we want to use Flake8, so we should just be able to choose Flake8. And then that should be it. So now every time we save, let me try and, okay, so Microsoft install fixed that. Interesting. Oh man. Control Shift P. Yeah, no worries. Sometimes it's kind of finicky. Like for example, I can't get mine to work for the life of me. My life, I can't get my life to work. No. But no, it didn't enable for me, for example. Sometimes you need to actually go into preferences. Sorry. No, it's fine. And go into settings. So these are the actual settings. The Control Shift P is like a quick access. It's a shortcut to your settings where you can access them quickly. But sometimes it's a little less happy to play along. So in this case, we're going to go to Python linter or Python, I guess. It might be better to search linter. And then luckily, because of the way that it's set up, it has a little, it's like grouped in parts over on the left. So you can select Python and it'll only give you Python related options. In this case, that is none of it. Very cool. Oh boy. All right, Flake8. Hey, there we go. Flake8, search Flake8, thank you. Search Flake8, that might be a better move. So in this case, there should indeed be a Flake8 enabled, which I can't find. Oh, here, right here. So this is a little checkbox, and it tells VS Code to use Flake8. So we're going to tick that. And what we can also do is we should also be able to Python what is it, lint on save. Yeah, Python linting, lint on save. It should be automatically checked, but essentially what that does is it'll automatically run over your code and highlight the issues whenever you save the file. So now, hopefully, Flake8 should work. It truly does not. Very cool. That's because it keeps wanting to use black. Give me a second. Black is a different linter and formatter that I have used, which is of course now ruining everything. Formatting for me. Yours should automatically be set to auto pep8 for formatting. You don't have to worry about that. Sorry, that's my installation. That's a little messy. If I do like this, that's also not installed. Install. Christ. Oh, Tom. Sorry. Sometimes I really hate it. VS Code can be a real pain to work with sometimes. Like, for example, the fact that formatter should be none, I'm pretty sure. Auto pip 8. My bad. Here, formatting provider none. So it doesn't do any formatting at all. Christ. Yeah, okay. Finally, I'm not getting any errors, but my Flake8 still doesn't work. This is an issue. It seems to be, again, kind of random, depending on your system. It might just be a matter of restarting. It might be a matter of it just not working at all. But sometimes the path to Flake8 doesn't get input correctly into your VS Code. Sorry? Yeah, that's what the issue's been. That's the reason Flake8 hasn't worked for me. So in this case, what we got to do is we got to do Flake. If we search Flake8, there'll be, if we scroll all the way down, Flake8 path. And this one, we need to, I guess, point towards the Flake8 installation. As to figuring out where Flake8 is installed, that's a little more fun. It should be in my Python folder. It should be in everybody's Python folder. If you go into your command prompt and just write Python, Python3, Py3, whatever your Python activates with, and hit enter, it should not give you a path. All right, sick. Yeah, but how do we get the Python path? I've forgotten. Fair point. Right. Yeah, you can just find the file and then open file location. My bad. Yeah. When you do that from the start menu, it'll take you to your like start menu folder. It's a shortcut in there. So if you just right click on it again and do the same open file location, it'll take you to your actual Python files. Whoop-de-doo. Which is where it should hang out. But now it doesn't, because of course it doesn't. Dude, we gotta, this is
easy way to install Flake8, right?
okay. What is it?
You just go into your Visual Studio,
Okay.
select enter. Control Shift B. Yeah. Or just search for links. Yeah, click it. Go to Flake8. And then it will pop up in the bottom right saying install.
But it won't. It didn't do that when we tried this at home either.
It did for her.
It did for her?
Yeah, see?
All right.
You just suck.
Well, in that case, bruh, sorry. I can't believe we're this dumb. Man, okay, for the people that didn't catch that on Zoom, what you're supposed to be able to do, apparently, is Control Shift P, select Python, select linter, click Flake8, and then once you've done that, in the bottom right down here, there should be a little pop-up saying you don't have Flake8 installed. Do you want to install it? Where you can just click yes, and then it works wonderfully after that. Hello? All right. I don't think it happens for everyone because yeah, I don't think it works for everybody because I have to admit it did not work for me. But man, it's going really well, Tom. I don't even know where my Flake8 is installed. Your site packages. Why is it an update? All right. Well, if Kia's method of simply pressing that one button doesn't work, you might have to find the path. What you can do is, as soon as you've installed Flake8 with the pip, if you write pip install Flake8 again, it'll tell you that it already is installed, and then it'll tell you where it is currently installed. In my case, it's installed in app data roaming Python for some odd reason. Percentage app data. Bro.
Still Flake8?
Oh yeah, I need it to work on my computer too now. Well, it does not work.
No, it's not that.
Okay.
Coming over.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thanks. All this, that's literally what I've been working on. Thank you.
There it is, right there.
Yeah, you've really fixed it for me now.
I know. I usually do.
I don't know if it has actually at all. Like this is not the script at all. It's not-
Does it even work for me? That's
What?
weird.
but none of it works for me.
Maybe you should reinstall Python. My dude.
Yeah, but maybe I shouldn't do that right now.
Oh, there it is.
Just skip it and then we'll post
There, it's
instructions.
installer.
We'll post
That's-
the instructions.
That's a bat file. You should be able to run that.
It's not that fun.
What is it though? It's nothing.
File.
It's just a file.
Man, Jesus Christ. Well, what do I
start it?
here? I'll just copy paste this and hope that works. Give me a second. Yeah, find the fucking path to your Flake8 and hopefully it works. But yeah, no, that's invalid indeed.
We choose Flake8. What does it say?
This doesn't do anything. Well, now it says that it's an invalid. I just do Flake8. No, it's not in my path, but that's because it's not installed properly, seemingly.
There you go.
But it also doesn't. No, it's not working. So
I don't know.
go
Yeah, I know.
Here's our
Borrow
VS Code.
here. If I save it, there's still only Pylance errors. No,
Okay.
no Flake8.
Can we try bring?
Yeah,
try
thanks.
Visual Studio?
Oh, yeah, I can try that.
Dude, I bet you it's gonna work.
Maybe.
Bet if it works.
Man, sorry for all this. It's a real mess. Fucking hell.
We tried this out. and it works.
Yeah, we tried this out as preparation and it worked real well, but here we are. Yeah, no Flake8. All right. I'm not sure why it doesn't work. I'm very sorry. I can still show you how it should work. If you do have it installed, it'll actually help you. If you're like me and it doesn't work, you're lost to the wonders of uploading to Codegrade 20 times, apparently.
It's great.
It's very nice. No, but once you do get it installed, in the bottom left, you can click on this little, there's like a little button with errors and warnings, which will open a nice long list of something similar like this. It'll tell you the file you're currently in, and then it'll likely tell you a bunch of issues. Pylance should be automatically installed. That one will take care of some of the more syntax-based errors, like
Python.
yeah, like actual Python code rules that is, so where code just straight up doesn't work. Your list will be far longer if you have Flake8 installed, most likely, because it will be complaining about every single line in your damn code. For example, Flake8 takes care of things like a one-letter variable. It'll tell you that's not good enough. It'll also tell you it's not good enough in things like for loops. So if you use for I in something, it will tell you that I is not descriptive enough, and it will not stop complaining until you change it to something more descriptive. Sometimes you'll Flake8 a file and you'll have something you know is not in keeping with Flake8, and like for example, a one-letter variable or a comment, and Flake8 will be like, this one time I will allow it, every other time I will not. It's sometimes it's just like cool and just allows you to do it for no reason. It's kind of random at times. Fix what it complains about until it works. It's the like I have no better way of saying it, unfortunately. You might also want to look into formatters. That's what I had before with the black formatter. That's a formatter for Python. You can also use AutoPep8 and I can't remember. There's some other ones. Like there are like three sort of main ones. And basically what they do is when you save, it'll just auto structure all your code to follow like the majority of Flake8 rules, for example. It'll fix what it can. So for example, in this case, if I were to, in this case, you can just do Control-Shift-P, nope, Control-Shift-P, do select and then format, nope, okay, Christ, formatter, nope, Python formatter, nope, Python select, interpret, nope, Christ, okay. Settings it is, man. Sometimes it's difficult finding it. Formatter. Hey, you should be able to find one that is Python default formatter. Here. Formatting provider. Christ. Yeah, sometimes guessing it with Control-Shift-P is less efficient than just going into the settings. Yeah. Here you can just select, kind of like Flake8 should have worked. You can just select which one you want to do, for example, black. Then as soon as you try to actually use it by saving, it'll tell you that the formatter is not installed. Do you want to install it? You hit yes. Well, this is for black. That worked. That worked before too. But Flake8 just is not having anything. So now we have formatting on save on, as well as this formatter installed. So if I hit Control S, it should automatically fix what it can. But here we are again. This lovely cycle. Sorry? Yeah, this wonderful cycle of this not working at all. Let me restart my VS Code again. This should actually work. It worked a second ago.
As you notice, just a lot of it is do as we say, not as we do.
Yeah. Also, a lot of times when it's kind of strange. Oftentimes you'll be writing code and it'll be going pretty well. You'll have an idea what's going on. You'll be working. It's nice and easy. As soon as you actually want to change something in like your environment, your setup, your VS Code, whatever, suddenly the half the world breaks and nothing works. It's, yeah, impossible to predict. But now, huh? Yeah. Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like like you install a bunch of things and suddenly there's an issue between some of it. And yeah. Now if I save, hopefully black should do its thing. It doesn't. Christ. Okay, I'm gonna stop actually trying to show things. Black will format it for you, for example, or AutoPep8, whichever you pick. There you go. Done deal. Yeah. And after that, that should minimize the amount of Flake8 errors you actually have to deal with. Very cool. Nice. I think that was the majority of our Flake8 and Codegrade stuff. Now we're getting to the lists where I can hopefully a little more confidently say things will work, because it's just coding, but we'll see how that goes. Right. Have you seen lists and tuples at all?
You put your hand up if you haven't seen either lists or tuples.
All right.
Either one.
All right, cool. we'll go through the whole thing because we're ahead of your schedule now. With Andreas, I think it's mapped for like 2 weeks or something. Oh, next week. Okay, my bad. So we'll be a little bit ahead of time, but that should be okay. Right. So for lists, there are a few basic things. Excuse me. We'll ignore this part down here for now. These are the tuples. The way you declare a list is using square brackets. You equal, or you write variable name equals, and then 2 square brackets. That's an empty list. If you want to declare a list that has items in it ahead of time, you write list equals, and then square brackets, and then just the items you want in there. So yes, yeah, you split it with a comma. Python is not picky. It will not give a shit if you put numbers, strings, booleans, anything in there. You can put whatever you want in one long list. Most often, your list will contain the same like data type for each element, because when you're looping over a list, knowing what data type you're working with is pretty useful, knowing what's actually inside it. But you can mix as you please. Similarly, it's also perfectly possible for you to put lists inside of other lists. Yeah. No, no, it's not a strongly written language. No. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I mean, the thing is, Python is kind of like the JavaScript, but for backend, you're completely right. There are ways to declare types, but I don't think we're going to go into that quite yet. But there are ways to like hard code what type is allowed in a variable or in a list. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, Python does have, I guess, a form of TypeScript where you can specify what type a variable is, or when you're making functions, you can specify what types of data, like the arguments are, and so on and so forth. It's not required. Sorry? Well, I mean, well, yeah, it has 4 like primary and what's it called? Yeah, native. I don't know. Yeah, Boolean, string, int, float, double. All of those are simple data types, but you can do for anything. You can also specify that it's a certain object. Primitive, that's the word. But for now, you don't need to worry about it that much. It is possible to use TypeScript, but we're just going to do the basics first, so that we'll get there. Yeah.
Well, the difference is that well, the reason is Python can still be used objectively and as an actual standalone coding language, whereas JavaScript is a scripting language. JavaScript doesn't handle, well, can handle, but is preferably used for front end things. Yeah. So.
But yeah, for now it's not that big a deal. Trust me, with the next couple tasks, it won't matter like that much.
You just get used to it.
You'll no, it's fine, it's fine. But I also don't want to complicate it too much right now. Yeah, of course. But it is possible to make it strongly typed. That's kind of what you were getting at. It's possible to make it that. Okay, back to the lists inside of lists. Python allows you to create however many lists you want inside of lists. And inside the lists, inside the list, you can then put whatever you want. Technically, I guess you can infinitely nest lists. There probably is a limit when your RAM runs out. Yeah.
mean, you would have to do it with code. So you would have to write some if statement that checks how many items are in the list, and then at that point you don't add to it. But no, there's no built-in method or function in Python that makes you limit. It's not like Java where a list is non-mutable, whereas a array list is. But no, the answer is no.
What you can use is you can use len, and then in here you can put both strings and lists and everything, and it'll give you the current length of that. So using that, you could check if it's over 100 and then limit it. But like you said, no built-in. Right. Next up, tuples. Tuples use normal brackets, but besides that, they're essentially the same when actually declaring them. So an empty one is just an empty tuple. If you want to create it with some items in it, you can do that. You can mix types however you want, and you can even put lists inside of tuples and tuples inside of tuples and tuples inside of lists. So you can mix and match kind of how you please. We'll get to the difference between tuple and list in a bit. But when declaring it, it's exactly the same. And you'll notice that a lot of it's exactly the same for them. Right. As for reading a list, if we want to read a list, let's say we have a shopping list here. We use indexing. You might have seen it. We did this, I think, in the last help session where we went over loops because it kind of relates pretty closely. But what you can do is you can use the variable name. So in this case, shopping list. And then using square brackets, you can access indexes or indices. So in this case, 0 would be the first item because indexes start at 0 and then go up from there. So 0 is the first item, 1 is the second item, and 2 is the third item. So in this case, if we were to run this, down here, very good. Is my Python just completely broken? Oh no. But oh, what the hell? They do what? Well, it did. It printed it, but oh no, it's the interactive window. Sorry about this. Apparently, my entire Python installation is just reinstall Python now. Yeah. I'll just run the whole thing. That's fine. All right. Here we can see that. Let's just look at the first one. So we're printing apples because we're trying to print while shopping list index 0. So that's the first item. So it just prints the first item. This also works on tuples in the exact same way. You just do the square brackets index and it prints out whatever is at that index. As for nested indexing, in case you have a list inside a list or a tuple inside a tuple or any combination thereof, you can access. So if you just use one level indexing, it'll print the actual list. What? Anything wrong? Okay, never mind. It'll print. So in this case, in the list of number lists, we have 3 lists nested in another list. So when we just access that one with one index, it'll print out the list that's at the first spot. This is the first index of the outer list, so to speak. Using a double index, so another set of square brackets right after, we can then access whatever's inside that nested list. So in this case, that would print 1 because that's the first item in the first list. Did that make any kind of sense? Nice, perfect. Similarly, you can also do this on, well, tuples. you can also do negative indexing. Negative indexing works in the way where you, I guess, kind of go backwards. So if the first item is 0, then the last item is -1, and the second to last item is -2. So in this case, we can print the shopping list right here. We can get item -1. So item at index -1, that would be the last one. So in this case, Coke. And that'll print Coke. And this also works in Tuples. It all works. You can read everything, any like list or tuple in the same way. Then we get to slicing. So list slicing is a way to access multiple items in either a list or a tuple at once. The way it works is you do the same as when you do an index, but you use a colon inside. So the first, on the left-hand side of the colon is the first index that you want to include. If you leave it empty, it's like writing 0. So it's just the beginning of the list. So in this case, it's kind of like 0. After the colon, you write which index you want to end at. It's a range. So in this case, we're going from index 0 to index 2. And if I'm not too mistaken, it is in fact not including the second one. So the first item is included. So when we write 0, 0 is included. But when we write 2, the third item, so in this case, Coke, is not included. So we just get apples and bananas. That is mighty confusing. I look it up every single time I need it. Similarly, you can do, you can leave the right-hand side empty, and it means the end of the list. So if we do 2 till the end of the list, it'll give you Coke, toilet paper, onions, and good bread. And we can also specify 2. So this time the 2 and 4, which will just get you like the center of the list. So Coke and toilet paper. It works everything like that. As you'll notice, they return other lists at the bottom. So the result of shopping list, let's say of line 21 here, shopping list slice 2,4 is the gives you a list back. So you can do the exact same stuff on that as you would any other list, like for example, indexing and so on and so forth. Just to give an example, I could add another set of square brackets afterwards. I write 0, and we'd now be accessing the first item of the sliced list, if that makes sense. It starts getting a little complicated. My black just did it, yeah. So this, okay. That was my formatter jumping into play. I don't know if any of you noticed it, but this right here was, that's the formatter black, noticing that the line was too long. And so it made it fit within the length limit. Sick, good times. It just needed a bit of time. So in this case, if we write slice 2,4 and then 0, we would be getting just Coke. It would just be returning Coke because it's the first item in that list. Whoop-de-doo. Same works for tuples.
Any questions?
Any questions about reading from a list? Yes. So in this case, if we were to write -1 here, it should remove last item in the list. I think you're pretty right. This is the mess with actually knowing where it is. Third to last one here. Yeah, so now we're missing that good bread. Dude, don't want to miss that. No, but so yeah, that's like removing the last item, and that's because we go from, so in this case, we're going from the beginning of it and then until index -1, which would be the last one.
Mind you, that also works with strings. So if you add
True.
the square brackets and then -1 on a string, it'll remove the last character.
Yes.
Remember that one.
Yeah, not gonna lie, string slicing, very handy. And it works in the exact same way. Everything about it is identical, besides the fact that it's a string instead of a list. All right, nice. Then I think we can move on to modifying lists. Right, this we kind of, sorry? Well, we've done a bit of it, but we'll go over it again. I don't know where to have this bar. It's really annoying. I guess there's best currently. Right. So this is where the difference between tuples and lists actually start mattering. You cannot change items or change the content of a tuple once it's been created. A tuple is immutable and a list is mutable. All it means is that you can modify a list on the go. You can't modify a tuple.
What's the difference between something that's mutable and not?
That's what I just said. Something immutable cannot be modified. Mutable means it is modifiable. So yeah. So keep in mind, all of this does not work on tuples. But the way you would do it with lists is you use dot append that adds to the end of the list. So in this case, we have the list 1 through 7. We're going to be using that during the whole example. If we run the code, you can see that because we've appended 8 and we then print the list, it now has an 8 in it at the end, just like that. Similarly, you can also remove items. If you do dot remove on a list, it will remove, and this is quite important, it will remove the item you specified inside the brackets. So in this case, because we've written 2, it will remove the element 2 that's equal to that. So if I run it, you can see that we now have 1, 3, and then up to 7. So we've lost a 2.
And it's not removing the second index. It's removing
That's,
that
I
item.
was just gonna, yeah. As opposed to dot pop. Sometimes you'll be in a situation where you really want to remove an item based on knowing what the item is. Other times you'll really want to remove a specific index in the list without caring about what the item is. If you want to do the second one, you use dot pop. Dot pop, that also lets you enter, for example, 2, but now it's the index. So this means the third item leaves. So in this case, that should be 3. So if I run it, we now have 1, 2, 4, and then up to 7. So dot remove to remove a specific item, dot pop to remove an item at an index. Make sense? Yep. Nice. All right. Similarly, you can also use the keyword del, which is, well, delete, to delete items in a list. So in this case, we're saying that we delete the first item in the list of numbers because we're specifying the index 0 here. So that deletes the 1. And using del, you can also delete the entire list. Deleting the entire list, I don't think has that much use. Maybe in some memory handling, but that's really not that important right now. And Python is really good at handling its own memory, like usage. So this one is relatively abstract in some way. You probably won't get much use out of it, but it's possible, in which case we'll get an error because now we're trying to print something that no longer exists. Right, so dot remove, dot pop, and del are the ways to delete things from lists. In case you would care to put 2 lists together, which knowing the tasks coming up, you definitely would, you can use dot extend. So dot append that you add 1 number or 1 item to the end of a list, but dot extend lets you add a list or a tuple of items to the end of a list. So you have to use dot extend if it's more than 1 item. You can't just use dot append. In this case, we're adding 8, 9, 10. So when we run it, we get 1 through 10 in the list. Another way you can do this is you can use just kind of regular math. This is called concatenation. Yep, it's a long word. No, but you can basically just do list math. So in this case, we say our original list of numbers, plus the list 8, 9, 10. And funnily enough, out comes, well, 2 lists. Bruh. Oh, now I'm printing it, right? Oh, right. Okay, I'm just printing it directly. Right, my bad. Yeah, so I guess the difference is, and it's kind of nice to highlight, this right here, the dot extend will modify the original list. Whereas using the plus, you'll have to reassign the list to the original variable if you want to keep it around. Right, okay, so in case you would want to add the list and then kind of keep it, you'd have to do list of numbers equals, and then list of numbers plus, and then whatever list you would care to use. So in this case, 8, 9, 10. So this right here would do the same as the dot extend, but this inside the print doesn't get saved back. So it just, list of numbers is not modified. That's the important part. Yeah, I think that's it. Similarly, you can also modify specific numbers inside a list. If you remember, using an index got us the item at a specific point in the list. So in this case, list of numbers index 0 is the first item. And then writing equals 9, you just reassign it to 9. So running it just makes it 9, 2, and so on. That's it. You can do the same. It starts getting a little interesting. You can slice the list using list slicing. In this case, into we get 4, so 0, 1, 2, 3. And then we can equal that to another list, which will modify all of those into whatever our list is. So in this case, flipping the first 4 numbers. So if we run it, you see instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, we end up with 4, 2, 3, 1 because we set that equal. That's it. It's doing the same as this one, but there's multiple indexes at once. Say, that's it. Any questions? Also, if you feel like leaving like mid, just walk out. It's fine. Like there's no pressure to stay. Right. It's also possible to multiply list. Again, just simple math. It'll do what you think it does. It just adds, like, how should I say, adds the list together twice. So in this case, if we do list of numbers times 2, we get a long list here that just has the same list twice. You can do that. I mean, that's, yeah, simple math. Multiply by however many times you want it. And that's about it. That's kind of how you modify lists. That might have been a lot at once. I hope it kind of made sense. Any questions? No? Yes? Seems good. All right, nice. Tuples are a little different. Like I said, they're immutable, so you can't directly modify a tuple. You can't, for example, do dot append or get the index and set it equal to something else. A bit of a workaround, which honestly, if you do use the workaround, you're probably using the wrong type. So that's something to keep in mind. If you find yourself in need of this, you might want to reconsider if you should be using a tuple at all. But you can turn a tuple into a list, and then modify it, and then turn it back into a tuple. So like I said, yeah, like I said, at that point, definitely reconsider if you should just be using a list, or if what you're attempting to do is maybe not quite right. But it's possible. So say we have a tuple here. We can then make it into a list by simply writing list and then passing it whatever tuple we want.
You've probably heard this before, called typecasting. Same thing when you're changing a string to an int.
Yes. So the exact same, like when you take an input and you write int and then parentheses around it, where you're casting a string into an int. Here we are casting a tuple to a list. After we've done that, if we run it, we should see here. So at this print, it's the second to last. So now this is the tuple we started out with. This is now a list. And down here, we've then modified it and turned it back into a tuple by setting the 4th index equal to 10 in this line. So yeah, it's possible. If you end up using it, probably not quite the way to go. If you're then wondering why on earth you need a tuple, tuples are really good for data. Storing data, tuples are perfect because you most likely don't want to modify it. You most likely just want to read it and do something with said data. Also, tuples are more memory efficient. So if you have, say, I mean, it won't matter if you have 10 items in a list and 10 items in a tuple. But when you get to the point where you maybe have 100 or 200,000 items in one list or one tuple, the tuple will be far faster when reading and so on and so forth. Yeah. So at that point, it might be worth considering. I think that's about it. Lastly, it is possible to combine, tuples and lists. And this is, it gets a little confusing. You might need it, you might not. They will, right? But will they actually? Because there it's just data, so you should just be able to do a tuple of tuples.
No, there's one with the
List of tuples, right? So you will need it supposedly. But yeah, so when you have either a list of tuples or a tuple of lists, because lists are mutable and tuples are immutable, it kind of, I guess, can get a little confusing. Just remember that when a tuple or a list is inside another tuple or list, that whole thing is the item. So if I can explain, like index 0, for example, of this list of tuples up here is, list of tuples, sorry, is this whole tuple. So it's the whole thing, which means we can modify the items in this list. So we can remove entire tuples, but we cannot modify the items inside the tuples because tuples are immutable. Just to show it off here, what we can do is we can, let me trash this one. We can do dot pop, for example. So here we started out with 1, 2, and then 3, 4, all the way to 8. And then afterwards, we've removed one of the tuple sets. But say we attempt to access, so because we're doing index 0 here in line 5, that is now this tuple. If we try to then remove an item from that tuple using pop, so in this case, we're trying to remove the 2, that won't work. It'll give you an error because the tuple we cannot change. And similarly, it works with lists inside tuples, but the other way around. So if you have a tuple with a bunch of lists in it, you cannot remove entire lists from the tuple, but you can go into the lists themselves and modify those items. Yeah, might be a lot right now. I hope it made sense at least, but I think that was about it. Any questions? No, sick, very cool. All right. All right. I mean, that's it. That's all we have for lecturing. We do still have like 45 minutes until we're officially done. So if you want to stay, hang out.
Now, if you have any questions about tasks or anything else, now's the time to ask.
Yeah, just hit us up and we'll come over.
Or anything else.
Also, in case you care, in case you want to, we do have like 1 or 2 tiny little exercises that you can try out with our assistants here while you're here. They're very small, but they'll help you understand hopefully lists and loops a tiny bit and how they interact. If you don't care, just leave. It's really not that big a deal. That's it. Nice. Also for Zoom people, let's see. I hope I recorded all of it. I have been recording it. So. I think that's it. Are we going to end the Zoom meeting? Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming on Zoom. I hope this helped. And if there are any questions, you can always hit us up on the Discord as well, even after the lectures. So have a wonderful Friday and weekend.
Oh shit, it's Friday.
Woo. How do I stop the damn recording? Stop recording.
Yeah.
That would do it, eh?